Well, hi. There she is. Timing, we're live. Well, welcome to Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. And Christine will do the formal introduction as soon as she gets up to speed. The show.
Hi there. Sorry.
That's all right.
I was on the Love Boat and now I'm back.
What an interesting idea. Let's talk about
that.
That
Is
today.
the Love Boat-A-Reality today.
Yes.
Welcome to the new streamingnetwork.com, WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, radio, TV, and podcast, #1 internet singles talk radio. And this is Let's Talk Dating with, for sure, Christine and Barry. She comes in sliding at the last second.
Home plate. Yeah. Welcome. We're here.
Look at that. We're both in red. We're getting ready for the holidays, huh?
Yes. Yes, we are indeed. So the Love Boat.
Yes, we've been talking lately about singles cruises, and are they a fun thing, a creative thing, an interesting thing? Should people really get out there and do them? And so what's been your experience talking to people about that, Barry?
Well, it's interesting because most conversations I have with people about cruises and in general, not just singles cruises, is, well, how do you say this? Since the pandemic, it's created some interesting conversations about people being in the idea of being trapped in one small enclosure, just in terms of freedom. So the idea of a virus versus the idea of dating, I don't want to put them together necessarily, but part of my mind is going there in a weird sort of way. So there's the thought about, because the thing for me, and this is totally personal preference, is when I'm in a certain environment, I will sort of, and this is probably being more vulnerable than I need to be, but I tend to scan the room for the more eligible, attractive women that I might be interested in. It's one of my natural, it's like radar. I have this thing that does. I'm sure other men do the same thing. Maybe women do too. So when you're on a boat, you are in a contained environment. And so there is a sense, and I've heard from other people about this too, is that if you're on a boat, if you're on a cruise for a week or so, a singles cruise, and there's 300 people or 1,000 people on the boat, if you're really methodical and you're working through all the possible dates out there, what happens if you don't find anybody? On the first date, what do you do the rest of the week? So from that perspective alone, and we're going to talk a lot more about it, but that perspective of being, in quotes, trapped on a contained environment where you've decided that none of the people are on there you're interested in, do you twiddle your thumbs for a week? What do you do? So that's one perspective. So please provide some more.
This kind of goes back to the one where we were saying, do you want to date somebody, look for somebody in your building of 500 people, and what if you meet somebody and
very similar,
you can never go home again?
Very similar. Well, at least that's one plus side then. If you have the cruise, you get to leave.
That's true. Screening 1,000 people in the first day, boy, that's a really good program you've got going on inside of you.
You're a mission, maybe.
Okay, so back to reality. So one of the really cool things about cruising with a bunch of single people is generally they're there to have fun, hopefully, at least some fun, not just to meet single people to date. Because if you're there with people that are in sort of your same generation, your same right around you decades, you're probably going to find people who have some similar interests and some different interests. So what I found with the people I've talked to that have been on them, they had some very fascinating conversations about where they cruised other places or the other places that they traveled, some activities that they participated in that nobody'd ever heard of before, or something that they, oh my gosh, I just got started doing that, or I've been doing that for 10 years. Let me tell you what I've learned. And people left with phone numbers of new friends, of people that now are from across the country or from other countries that they ended up making new friends and saying, well, I'm thinking about going on this trip next or going on this cruise next. Have you been on it? Where are you thinking about going? And they found travel buddies as well, which really was a very pleasant experience. The other thing that was really helpful was you can get preset at tables of either 4 or 6 or 8 or 10, and you don't have to stay at the same table all the time. You can kind of move around so that if you're not happy with your table mates, or you were happy with them, but you'd like to experience others, one of the things about cruises is it's very flexible. They have different seating times for meals. They also have different table seat settings, so you can move around and meet new people. And it was one of the most flexible things they said. And they also have like tours of the kitchen, and they have all these activities. They have shows, they have games, and you decide which ones you want to participate in. And if the people that you like are going, great. And if the people you don't like, don't go to that activity.
Well, that's the thing I like about the idea. And so, speaking of the other side of things, I want to throw that one out at the beginning just to get it out on the table, just to set the table, so to speak. But the idea about going on a cruise to make connections, to build friendships, to explore new sports, new hobbies, new ideas you didn't do before. Because in a way, being on the cruise, there's a chance to do things you've never done before. And so the focus of the cruise isn't necessarily about got to find the one. It can definitely be about the trying new things, exploring new things, trying new ideas. So the idea about doing stuff that is in the vein of I want to come away more skilled, more informed, more aware than I was when I joined the cruise. That can be a great idea too. So that one, and the idea about making new connection, new friends, and frankly, going cruises, you might discover you found a new wingman or wingwoman, so to speak, to be with you as a buddy who can maybe connect with somebody else. So going through that lens, the single cruise can be very positive because first of all, you're a singles cruise, you're usually going alone because you're single. So you're not having to deal with other people's responsibilities. If you're going with family members or you're going with, partners, you've got to be accountable to that person or those other people. So you can't do certain things you maybe want to do. When you're single, it's like, I can do whatever I want. So if I want to go, check out the kitchen, or I want to go play sports, I don't have to wait for somebody else to say, yes, I'll do it with you. So that's another plus of being on a single cruise as well.
It's one of the advantages of solo travel. I traveled in the times I was single between my marriages, and now since my husband passed away, I've done solo traveling. And it's one of the nice things. If you want to go take a nap, you don't have to ask anybody's permission. If you want to go on an excursion, you don't have to ask anybody's permission. One of the harder things is that you don't necessarily have somebody that you're close to and that you have a second language with to talk about the thing that you just saw. But if you're going to make a couple buddies on the trip, then you can go on an excursion with them and talk about it with them over dinner.
Yeah.
The other thing to think about is Barry and I talk a lot about how important it is to keep practicing. So if you have 999 other people on this cruise, you can practice having a new kind of conversation with them, asking them interesting, gosh, I'm so curious, getting to know another person, talking a little bit about yourself. Even the most introverted person can learn how to have brief little conversations with people, and you have 999 people to pick from to have a different kind of conversation with a couple of men, a couple of women, the opposite sex. Have a couple of conversations every day with one or two people, even if it's the crew, even if it's the social director. Practice talking to new people, because when they're not so cute and you're not trying to get somebody's phone number, it's a little easier to practice with somebody that this is their job to be friendly with you, and it doesn't feel so intimidating, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There is definitely something about not having attachment to the result where it can be easy to play and explore and try things out and not be so scared of doing it wrong. Yeah, that one. Oh, yeah, that's a big one right there, because when you meet that person, you're trying not to be what's the word, verklempt. It's a term, I think when you're on a cruise. So in a way, to go on a singles cruise can also be a great place to, it's like being in the dugout, being practicing and playing like sports and stuff, is learning how to do something before you go out on the field and play. Being in a singles cruise, you could treat it as that sort of idea where it's a test ground. It's a practice ground. It's a place you get to explore and try new things and discover what your natural tendency is. And also, this is another thing you can do, is get honest feedback. You can actually ask for people to give you feedback about how they felt you, how they perceived you, where maybe you could do things differently or better, which you couldn't necessarily do if you go out on a date in local neighborhood. The singles cruise, because there is a certain anonymity, because a lot of people come on the cruise who you never met before from other countries, like you were saying, or other parts of the country. You probably won't see most of them again unless you really wanted to. So you could use them as sounding boards and reflections to say, how do I come across? How do you see me? What do you notice about me? What do you find attractive? What do you find not attractive? You can really get honest feedback that way. So it's another resource, another tool you can use when you're on the singles cruise.
So important. And for all
Yeah.
the people that did watch Love Boat on TV, there was the Julie McCoy was the cruise director and planned all the games. And I've heard that they do lots of icebreakers. They have a whole list of things that they do to help people get to know each other, like put, you know, something on your back that's a famous person, or an activity that you have to guess with yes or no questions, and go find the person that matches who you are, like Romeo to Juliet or something, you know, that has to do with romantic things. And if you can go lighthearted, this is not a serious life or death game. This is a fun game that you can start laughing. And the more you smile, the more attractive you feel, the more available you feel, the more attractive the other person feels. And go play the games, even if you think they're silly, because that's what I've heard people say. They're silly games. Well, then go be silly. Being silly is perfectly fine. You can go be all silly, all be serious and intellectual in your room. If you're going to go put yourself on this cruise, please bring your lighthearted teenage childish self with you, that you can play some.
Well, partly because, again, as I said before, this is not necessarily the be all and end all for your dating life. It is in a lot of ways an exploration, an experiment, a chance to practice being a dater. You know, because for most of us, when we're on the dating perception or the experience, we're swiping in the apps or meeting people through matchmakers, or we're seeing people through friends. We're not dating somebody every single day. Maybe once a month, once a year. I mean, it depends on the scale. But being on a cruise ship where there's the quote possibility of lots of dates out there, even if there's not ones you want to be with, the practice ability, the ability to really get to hone your languaging, to really feel how it feels, and even to know, even if you set up with the person you're talking to, look, just to be clear, I want to use you as a practice ground. I'm not interested in dating you, but you might be a good person for feedback. Would you be willing to play that way? Because first of all, you're getting permission, which is a good starting point. You don't want to presume that. But secondly, they may have the same feeling going on, and you might discover that you find yourself, again, like you said earlier, like being good connections, good friends, because you were so honest with each other. So chance to play.
And pick a destination that you really are interested in going to. Don't just go because it's a single cruise. Don't just go to meet the love of your life forever, because that's not a realistic, attainable goal. I'm not saying it can't happen, but don't go with that as a goal, because then if it doesn't happen, you think the whole thing was such a waste. So go where you feel like your money was well spent, that you paid for a cabin that you would enjoy being on, whether you wanted a window or not, a balcony or not, and that you were going to go to a destination or a few destinations that you really wanted to go to. You want to get off the ship and go explore, and maybe go with a couple of other people that you think they would be interesting to go with. And you never know if you're going to have a good time or not, because often you'll join other people that are, because often the cruise lines are all showing up at the same place. So you'll meet people that are on other lines and ask them what they think of their boat, and see if maybe that's when you'd want to try on another cruise. And then visit the people that live in the village or the town to say, is that really a place you'd like to come back and visit another time? Because it's all about the culture. It's all about learning. It's not just about the cruise.
We talk a lot I think we've talked on this podcast quite a few times about how the journey, the place we're going on, is always about becoming more whole, more well-versed, to be more experienced in a sense. So the singles cruise, like anything else you do, could be a really good adventure to learn how to be more noticed, more sociable, more connected. Especially if you're I say a wallflower, but if you're someone who's more reclusive and you want to get out there and learn more, singles cruise could maybe be the best choice you can make, because it puts you, like I said, in a contained environment where everybody there is single, so they're all in the same boat. And no pun intended, but it came out that way. But the thing is that these people, none of them may be your partner. And if you go in there with that feeling like it doesn't matter, like you're less attached because one of them might suddenly become one, you don't know, is you get to practice, as I keep saying, and I'll come back to this again and again because I'm just feeling this so strongly, is the singles cruises are not meant to be the last step towards matrimony. The chance to meet new people, single, have fun, flirt, play, maybe mess around, maybe have some fun stuff as well. And you might meet somebody you want to be with in a long-term relationship. You'd also might meet people, as you said earlier, that could be lifelong friends and connections. So the opportunity to jump in and it's like, I'm really telling myself how good these are. I'm not, just to be clear, I've not been on a singles cruise to this point, but it's starting to make me, I'm starting to feel attracted to the idea of doing one now because of what I've been talking about. There's such a joyful exploration available.
And the food is really good. There's food available 24 hours a day. It's quite remarkable what they put out. And that's why the first time I went on a cruise, my late husband liked cruising a lot. We went on a tour of the kitchen, and it is a remarkable place, how well that choreographed it is and how remarkably well the food is. The food's delicious, it's well prepared, it's fresh, and the meals are wonderful. And then there's all this stuff that goes on the rest of the time in between the meals. There's all these wonderful snacks, there's an ice cream bar, there's cookies all the time, there's fresh fruit all the time. It's really quite a fun thing to just partake of. And then they have crafts and they have movies and they have dancing. It's really fun. And there's lots of activities outside around the pool. Some of them have climbing walls. I mean, really, if you stay on the boat, you could do lots of things. But I really suggest that if they're going to go into a port, to get off and go do the activity as well, just to get off the boat now and then and see how do the people that you're interacting on the boat, how do they act when they're on the land? I mean, this is the way we used to meet people when we would see them in other atmospheres. We'd see them at school at different classes, or we'd see them at work. How did they act under tension? How did they act at a party? Well, now you're going to get to see people in all sorts of activities and moods, and they're away from home. You can really learn a lot about a person on a cruise if you spend any time with them or watching them or talking to them.
Absolutely. And I know it's always been said about what you're on a date, you want to watch how your date treats the busboy, like how they treat the service staff, because there's sometimes they can be very respectful to you, but if they look down at certain people, that can be very telling. And so the idea, as you said, expanding it to a much bigger context, we go to like meet the local natives into their environment where they live, and see how they treat them as well. It can be very telling as well. So there's a lot of upsides I'm seeing to the singles cruise after I mentioned at the beginning the downside.
And, sometimes people are sitting around the pool and they're reading, do you have an author that you both like? Or, wow, I've never heard of that person. Why do you like them? Or they're playing backgammon or chess. They have rooms that they have board games set up, or they're going to play Pictionary or Rummy Tiles. And to find people that are doing an activity that you like, or Scrabble, to go look for that, to find people that you're going to have something that you could relate to, that you could be friends with first. It's always nice to look for friends first, right, Barry?
Absolutely. Yes. So maybe time to prepare for the break, and then we'll come back and do some more.
Yes. So if all of this has been intriguing to you and you'd like to talk to Barry or I about maybe thinking, well, let's talk a little bit more about how to approach a singles cruise, or even just single people, Barry and I would be so happy to talk to you. And the way to reach me is to go to my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. Scroll to the middle of the screen and click on What's Holding You Back from Love questionnaire. It'll give you access to my online calendar, and you can schedule a complimentary conversation with me. And you can also send me an email at christine@theperfectcatch.com.
Nice. And so for
and
me,
Barry, tell people how they would reach you.
Absolutely. So similar to Christine, if you want to find out more about me, go to my website, which is barryselby.com. And at the top of the screen on my website is the equivalent button, which basically is Let's Chat. And that takes you to my calendar and to a form you fill out that basically gets me learning more about what you're about, what you're looking for, what didn't work. And then we'll schedule a Zoom call based on what you'll put in the calendar. And we can talk about where you are and what you're looking for. And I can get a sense of where I can help you, where if I won't be able to. So just to be clear, it's not like guaranteed you will, but we get to talk about that. And alternatively, if you want to email me, you can send me one at barry@barryselby.com and let me know what's going on.
And we're going to just take a brief break and to hear from our lovely sponsor. And then we're going to come back to Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry and talk more about Is the Love Boat a Reality? We'll be right back.
See you in a moment.
Thank you to our lovely station that produces our podcast. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. And today we're talking about, is the love boat a reality? We're talking about singles cruises and the things to watch out for that might not feel very positive and you might be concerned about, and why you might want to enjoy going on one. And Barry and I are both going, well, maybe we could sign up for one independently, because it might be kind of a fun thing to go. We need to do some research, right? And maybe help people that are feeling a little concerned and confused when they're on their cruise, right?
Yeah, I actually had a thought, and I thought probably shouldn't do this, but I could hold a salon in one of the rooms. It's like, maybe I shouldn't hang out my shingle when I'm on a singles cruise. I don't know. Just can be careful about that too. But the thing I just want to say a few things to recap what you said earlier. Because the cruise is established as a singles cruise, so like the Love Boat idea, where the staff on the ship are, it's a single centric, but they're focused on that modality, that perception, that way of being. It really does create a conducive environment to play and to explore that arena. Because again, when we're out in the world and meet somebody, most of the world is not focusing on singles being in relationship. They're just doing life. You know, there's all stuff going on. Whereas on when on a singles cruise, the whole focus, the whole topic, the whole vibration of the ship is about single connection. And so there's a lot of freedom in the same place where they feel like it's only one thing. It's like, no, the thing is, because of that, you can see things from so many different angles. One of my things I talked about a lot in my own work, in my own life, is I spend a lot of time, it seems like, to be a witness to what's going on. I observe and think how people are. It's part of my skill set, part of my natural tendencies. Being on a singles cruise, if you're not ready to jump in and like being the pool, in the pool, so to speak, dating and mixing in with people, if you spend your time watching other people, how they interact, where they strike out, where they win, where they do, where they don't, you can learn a whole library of skill sets you didn't even know you had by watching how other people interact. So even if you don't necessarily want to go, okay, I'm going to put my best foot forward and say hi to some people and get in and start making connections, you can watch other people and see how they do it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good idea. And introverts especially are very good at observing and watching people. And I think they're really good at reading people because they're so busy really sensing the room and paying attention to the room. So do that, even just for the first couple of days, watch what people are doing, especially if you're brave enough to take a cruise for a whole week, which is what the people I've talked to recently went on a week cruise. And they ended up having quite an enjoyable time, more than they expected. They ended up coming away with a couple of people that they were really going to now be friends with and do other things in the future with. And I was very proud of them because they were a little nervous about going, and they ended up having a much better time than they ever expected. The other thing to think about is it is much less expensive to get a cabin mate. And what's really lovely about most travel agencies is they're now having you fill out kind of like a dating profile, not only who you are, but what would be okay with you sharing a room with somebody, certainly of the same sex. But kind of what time in the morning do you normally get up and what time do you normally go to bed? So that they're looking for somebody that's going to keep about your same hours, and somebody that, has the same kind of feelings about whatever. It was really helpful, she said, to have a chance. Now they can't really, even as in dating, you can't always get matched up everything completely the same, but it was helpful. Because if you really do want a room to yourself, sadly, it's a lot more money. It really is kind of shocking how much you think because they don't have to make up the room, but most of the rooms still have 2 beds. So they don't make as much money because they're not renting it out to 2 people. Probably not called rent on a boat, but whatever. So they do charge more for one person. Just know that. Don't complain. It's just the rules. So if you can let your travel agent, if they're going to be diligent about this, match you up with somebody. I've heard pretty good reviews, not 100%, but think about that ahead of time, because it is a potential challenge, but it can work out really well.
Absolutely. Sounds like a really smart idea. Again, if you look at the singles cruise as an opportunity to make new connections, and you don't bias it saying, I've got to find romance. The only reason I'm here is for that reason, which is what the Love Boat was a lot about. Actually, take that back. I remember way back watching reruns of the Love Boat. Sometimes the people on the Love Boat didn't get into a relationship. It was a whole bunch of different stories. But the recognition is that on the dating sorry, on the single cruises for the dating focus, the goal is not necessarily to have a date when you come off the boat. It oftentimes is to make new connections. And the idea about making connections in your roommate, as much as it is about out in the, you know, that's an easy one because you're going to be with them, you know, on and off quite a lot of the time. So taking the whole cruise as a whole opportunity to make new friends, connect, and discover new things about yourself and other people, it sounds like you can treat the whole thing as an adventure. And frankly, like you're saying, by getting off the ship, I'm just, as an overarching sort of theme for the idea of the singles cruises, there are so many different aspects, opportunities, perspectives, viewpoints that you can enjoy and explore over that whole week. It can actually be almost like you want to go for 10 days, not just a week, because there's so much to explore. So you won't get bored.
You know, that's such a good point, Barry, because I now remember them saying, one of them said, gosh, now I really will take one that's longer, because she thought, oh my gosh, you know, what am I going to do for a whole week? But it turned out it was so full and she had such a good time that she now was going to do a 10-day one. I'm not sure I would have remembered if you hadn't said that, because I thought that was really telling, that she'd had a much better, she didn't think she'd have a bad time, but she had a better time than she even thought she would.
Yeah. So that's a vote in the plus column for the idea about doing singles cruises.
So the other thing that I'm going to warn you about is, I know people who they have a best friend and they're going to go with their best friend. Don't do everything with your best friend. Be sure that you do pick a couple things that you're going to do without them, so that for sure you're going to talk to other people, because it's tempting to just talk to each other, because it's like having a spouse or a long-time relationship with someone that you have this second language and you could just like look at each other. I'm not saying don't spend time with them, but don't spend all your time together, because right. Do you have some interests that are a little different? Are there a couple of things you can do different? Because then you'll meet other people and then bring them. So now you can have a little group. Now you can have 4 people or 6 people. You both bring people back and you can now have dinner together or go do rock climbing together. But women often have this little pack. You know, we form a pack of people. We make packs together. And then men are just like, women are like, why don't men come over? Because all they see is our backs and it's impenetrable. We don't realize how impenetrable I'm seeing you nodding, because I talk to men all the time about this. Yeah. It's hard. So often when you're now with a new woman, you seem to not do this backs facing out as much. You're now still in your looking around mode and flipping your hair mode. So I suggest that you don't just hang out with your bestie the whole time.
I agree with that. No, it is easy, especially if you're on, again, 1,000, I'm using the number 1,000 just for the sake of it, but 1,000-person singles cruise, where you go with your friend, they become your lifeboat. And so you feel always you've got to be with them no matter what. And the truth is, if you treat your friend and your friend treats you as your wing person, as in they're looking out for you, not looking at you all the time, that's a much healthier way of exploring the boat. Because as you said, it's so tempting to spend all your time with your friend, and then basically you miss all the opportunities the boat offers. Yes, you can do some things together, but it's almost, how do you meet somebody comfortably when you've always got the other person hanging over your shoulder? Because the thing is, what happens is you're going to meet somebody, but your friend is like, yeah, but I feel left out. And then you have this whole thing going on. And that's messy. So if you're going to bring a friend, make sure you have an agreement how you're going to be in the boat together, what roles you're going to play. Maybe you say, you know what, we're both on our own on the boat, but at a certain point in time, we'll check in or connect, and we'll say we'll meet up at a certain place, certain time, and see how things are going. So you've got a resource, but you're not swamped with each other or swallowed up with each other.
That's a really good idea. Like, we're always going to check in at lunchtime, or we're always going to check in at 2:30 or whatever. You know, we're going to text each other and, are you still okay? Do you need rescuing? We could have like a code. Oh, come, I'm here and you need to come rescue me. You need to tell me there's an emergency, you know, because that's another thing that your bestie can do, get you out of a sticky situation.
Very true. Yes. Just definitely keep that one in mind.
Yeah. Guys are much more, because we need to watch out for our safety, that we women look out for each other's back. That's why we hang out together. And I am not making light of that. And I want you to have somebody with you. We like having somebody with us. But it's amazing how many women I have now talked to, now that I've put this subject out in the world, that have gone on cruises by themselves. I was very surprised. I did not expect the number to be as high as it was. I was really impressed.
That's good news for the men, by the way, so they know that.
Yeah, because lots of men go by. I'm telling you, ladies, there's a lot of men out there going on cruises by themselves. They don't generally take another guy along. Sometimes they do. Oh, you're going on a cruise? I'll go on a cruise too. They go for a different reasons, just as, oh, yeah, that sounds like fun. But it's not the safety and numbers thing, because usually that's the thing that the women do. But there were, and I said, were there plenty of men? They said, oh, there were plenty of men. It wasn't that it was the percentage, the single percentage is usually way higher, women to men. There were a lot of men on the cruise, because think about the destination too. That is part of it.
Right.
Is it and then you can talk to the travel agent or the cruise, whoever you're making the reservation through, and they'll tell you. And you can look at reviews. What was the percentage of men that have been on past cruises? And what were the age groups? I mean, you can do a lot of checking if you read the reviews.
Yeah, definitely. And that's another thing to do. That going on a cruise, don't go blind. Right? Don't go on there blindly. To do some research beforehand and prepare and to learn. Because let's be blunt, you want to have a good time. You want to enjoy yourself. You want to have a nice experience on the cruise. And yes, all the things we talked about before with making connections and maybe finding a love partner, all these different things. But set the parameters up in a way that works as well. So to have energy and focus on doing the research, yes, read the reviews, read reports. If you know any people who've been on the cruises, check in with them what they said. And of course, they may be biased, but at least you get some information on and also check the cruise line, because you might find the cruise line says, we have a rule every time that we have a 50-50 split between men and women, or it's all straight, or it's all this age group, because there are going to be cruises where the singles cruise may be a certain age group already. So going in what age group you're in. So knowing beforehand when you get on the boat is a smart move. So when you get on the boat, some of the items in your list are checked off already before you even get there. So it's a good idea to do the research beforehand.
And think about, do you want a dress up night? Do you want a costume night? What fits you? Do you want one that they're doing more athletic things? Do you want more that they're having lectures? I mean, really think selfishly, not just to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend, that you're going to be stimulated intellectually, physically, emotionally on this cruise by the things that are of your interest, because then you're going to meet people that have the same interests as you. That's part of the point. It's not just that they're also single, it's that they like the similar activities, or they like the same intellectual stimulation. It's really, do some research, think about it ahead of time.
Basically, make this fun. And by making it safe and clear, it's funny, you said something earlier, I want to touch base on this, just sidebar a bit. You mentioned about how for women it's safety in numbers. What I suddenly came up in my head was, for men, is competition in numbers. Because for us men, we don't want to have all our buddies with us, because we want it makes the playing field harder to play on, so to speak. We want to eliminate the competition, so to speak. So it's funny how it's different for men and women. So anyway, I just threw it on the table because that was so funny. You said safety in numbers for women, and part of me goes, not for us. One or two maybe, but when there's a whole posse of men together, we don't like it, because then, especially if we're all single looking, it's like we go, there's too much competition here.
You like the odds when there's more women than men. I so understand that.
Of course. Definitely.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing is, there's often lots of crew and hosts that if you're feeling concerned or you need some guidance or some help, they're there. They're generally well-trained, well-versed. They pick the people that are good for that kind of a cruise. Because I've been on a number of cruises, and I was very impressed that the people that worked on the cruise knew their job for that kind of a cruise, for that kind of an audience. So I've heard, because I've also not been on a singles cruise, that the people that have been on a single cruise felt like the staff was very well versed at how to handle a boat full of single people. That they did a very good job at answering questions, keeping people comfortable, keeping people interested and active in whatever ways they wanted, and kept sorting people around in a way that felt very comfortable. So Barry and I are recommending it. We think you should go, and we're going to now decide how we're going to end up going and come back with our reviews, right?
Yeah, it was so funny just realizing we neither one have been on the singles cruise and going, yeah, we're big proponents of these things we've not done. So,
I know.
But it makes sense, because the thing is, the more we talk about it, the more we are illuminating for ourselves, as well as for you who are listening and watching, the benefits and the positive experiences available with singles cruise. So we're thumbs up, even though we haven't done them yet.
Well, it's just so many people have been talking about it lately to me, probably a lot more in the last 6 months. And it just has brought it more to the front of my mind because I hadn't really thought about it much, but I've sure had a lot of people tell me about it.
Yep, definitely.
So there you go. So if this has sparked any interest in you to talk about singles cruises or anything else to do with dating and relationships in your past, in your present, in your future, that's why Barry and I are here. We're happy to answer any of your questions, help you through this navigating the new world of dating, because it's certainly different. Everybody says it's so different than it was before. Yes, we agree. Very different. All the time that we've been dating in our separate lives, it's all been changing over time. So we've stayed very clear about what it's like right now, and we're happy to individually help you in any way that you would like. So the way to get a hold of me is to go. Did you say something?
No, I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah, thumbs up, right?
Mm-hmm.
The best place to start is at my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. If you'd love to talk to me, and I'd sure like to talk to you, to find out where you are right now and where you'd like to be, is to go to the middle of my website and click on the What's Holding You Back from Love questionnaire and let me know what you'd like to be different in your life right now. And we'll see, are we a fit? Kind of like a first meeting on a first date. And once you've filled out the questionnaire, it'll give you access to my online calendar and you can schedule a complimentary conversation with me. You can also on my website go to the top and click on my ebook and download it for free. It's got a bunch of chapters. And one of the things that people are finding is that you can just pick a chapter. You don't have to go in order. You can decide which one you want to start with and hop around. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. You can also join my mailing list. Every week you'll get a replay of this wonderful podcast that Barry and I do. You can also go to the very bottom and click on any of my social media of Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter and Pinterest and YouTube. And if you click on the YouTube, you will get a whole library of all the podcasts that Barry and I've now done together, over 260 of them. You can also send me a personal private email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And Barry, please tell people how to get a hold of you.
Well, similar to Christine, I have lots of things to share with you as well. So again, I have my own website, which is barryselby.com. And if you go to that page, as I mentioned before, at the top of the screen is a button you can click on, which is Let's Chat, which gets you on my calendar and has you fill out a questionnaire and we decide how we work together. At the bottom of the screen is where just jump in on my email list. If you're not ready to set up a call with me, at least get into my email list, because then you'll get replays of this show every week that I send out to my audience, as well as other things I'm working on, invitations and all sorts of other things that I'm doing. In the middle of the screen is the first of my 2 quizzes I created. One of them is a relationship readiness assessment. Relationship readiness assessment. Make sure you let that lands. The other one, which I'll talk about in a moment, is a self-relationship assessment. So the first one, relationship readiness assessment, which you can go to barryselby.com/quiz or click on the button in the middle of the screen, will give you a chance to really just discover for yourself, are you ready for a relationship? What's in the way? What hasn't worked? What does work? And I'll give you some pointers and guidance. You'll get an email from me which explains where you are on that path, and also an invitation to work with me as well, of course. The second one, which I mentioned, is the self-relationship assessment. That's not a button you can press, but you can go to the link directly, which is barryselby.com/self-quiz, which is a much deeper self-reflection, self-examination, self-review to know what your relationship with yourself is like. And frankly, if you're looking at getting into a relationship and you're single, start with that one first. It's the most powerful, I think, review you can have of yourself. And of course, I'm biased. In fact, it's so powerful, I actually give you a full PDF with that one, not just an email, but you get a whole PDF you get with that to really navigate and give you some next steps to work on. And of course, an invitation to talk to me as well. Also, my website is my book, which has been out for quite a long time now, but it's a best-selling book called 50 Ways to Love Your Lover. So you go to barryselby.com/book, or you can click on the link in the navigation. And if you're not sure if you want to get the book, at the top of the screen is a little audio discussion between 2 very authority voices, like NPR voices in a way. They're actually AI generated, but they discuss my book in great detail in about a 12-30-minute clip. So if you've got that much time, listen to it, see what you think. And if that speaks to you, then go get the book on Amazon. It's right there on the page. What else is to share? Oh, social media wise, you can find me on all the platforms. I'm under my own name, Barry Selby, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, on YouTube, especially because on YouTube I've not only the videos with Christine, but I got over 1,000 other videos from other places as well. So if you want to find out more about my work, get some good insight, definitely follow my YouTube channel and subscribe to that. And then on Instagram and Threads, it's the real Barry Selby, because that account got changed a few years back. But either way, you can find me on all these different platforms. And quick plug, I've been mentioning before, and I mentioned it again, I am launching in the new year my emotional sovereignty program. And so if you want to find out more about that, get on the wait list you'll get on the wait list by reaching out to me, or when you get my email with this replay in it, there'll be a button in there to check on as well. I think that covers everything I can share with you right now.
Perfect. And we are here live every week at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern, and all the times in between. And then you can watch us on Roku or YouTube, but you can take us with you right audibly, right, Barry?
Absolutely. This show is also now a podcast. So if you are satiated with seeing our faces all the time, I'm going to be careful I say that, you can take us with an audio format. Listen to us wherever you go. The great thing about podcasts is you don't need to have your phone in front of you, or when you're driving or walking around or anything else. So you actually can listen to us where it's in your pocket. So the audio version of our show, which is Let's Talk Dating on your own platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those platforms, you can listen to us wherever you go and keep tuned up and refined about dating and relationships. So definitely subscribe is the word, to our podcast, so you can keep up to date what we're talking about.
Yes, and share it with anybody that you think might be having a challenge with their dating and relationships, and give us a thumbs up review. So we'll be back next week with another interesting conversation about dating and relationships. Bye for now.
Take care.